This is your place for all things Grand Rapids Griffins and all things Toledo Walleye. This is the Hockeytown West podcast with your host, Brandon Cook and Nick Harrington.
And welcome back to the Hockeytown West podcast, your source for everything Grand Rapids Griffins and Toledo Walleye hockey. I am one of your hosts, Brandon.
And I'm Travis.
And we are without Nick again tonight. He is feeling under the weather. We hope he feels better soon. But our buddy here, Tyler, was gracious enough to join the show tonight, hop on and talk some Griffins hockey with us since there was a lot to talk about over the weekend. Tyler, man, I know you're looking something up for us right now, but how you doing?
I'm doing well. I had a good weekend, and it's weird having the day off in between games like the Griffins did, but no, I'm doing good. My Michigan football team won. The Lions won. I know the Griffins lost Friday, but they won on Sunday and made up for it. So it's a good end of the week and a good start on this Monday.
Yeah, we won't talk about the upcoming game this weekend. Nope, we don't do that here.
We don't talk about Bruno. Nope.
Trav, man, how are you doing? I got to see you this weekend. I'm sure there's a bunch we're going to talk about in our Toledo episode this week, but you can give the fans a little teaser for that if you'd like.
Oh man, I'm riding like the biggest like high ever that you could probably be riding outside of like if they won the Kelly Cup. But no, it was so much fun. We had a blast. I'm not gonna go too far into it because I mean that's gonna be something we probably ramble on for like a half hour. But you know, it was an amazing day. Thank you to them. But I mean, you'll hear more at the end of the week. But I'm still not kind of off that mountain. I'm just way up here right now. But that's why.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, the only teaser we'll leave you with is we spent basically our full day Saturday at the Huntington Center, essentially, outside of going to get some lunch. That was about it. So we got a ton of content and stuff to talk about on this week's Toledo episode. So stay tuned for that. But we'll dive into this. This is our Griffins episode of the week. The first episode of the week is always devoted to the Griffins, and they had two games this weekend at home, Friday and Saturday, against the Iowa Wild. Before we dive into those, though, just some quick news and updates from the team. I mean, the first one we got to talk about, it's probably the most obvious one on Sunday. Equipment manager Dog Thompson, man, celebrates his 2000th game in the AHL. He was nice enough to sit down with me briefly over the week and talk at Griff's Ice House during practice and get some behind the scenes with him and chat just how he was feeling heading into that game. And of course, Tyler and I were the only media at the game on Sunday and put him in the media scrum instead of one of the coaches that night. And that was an absolute blast. But congrats to Dog, man. He's just been an ultimate friend of the show ever since we've met him, you know, doing the summer interview in the locker room. If you never saw that one, it's an absolute blast to watch. He had stories upon stories, and he's a great storyteller too. But honestly, just one of the genuinely nicest guys probably in the city of Grand Rapids. Loves the community, loves this city, and loves the guys he does this job for, and just got to send out an extra congratulations to him again. I know, Tyler, you followed Dog for quite a while, have been a fan of this team since birth, like you said, essentially just like myself here. Man, just any words you have to say to him that we haven't already said to him?
Well, the funny thing was when we interviewed him after the game, I gave him like the whole spiel of like, well, Dog, what do you thought about the game or whatever? Because we, gave him the coach stuff. And the thing is that whenever I go to practice, I typically don't like to get in the way of people. I don't like to. I let them do their thing. Especially, players are very routine oriented, trainers are very routine oriented. But I love talking with equipment staff, especially. I've talked with other teams in the American League too, because I always find myself down in the tunnel and I just talking about their days and how their work ethic is and what their schedule is like. And being an equipment manager is a tough job. For example, when I traveled with Western Michigan to go to Boston College last month, we had to drop the gear off because Boston College had a football game and Louisville's schedule was getting in the way of everything. We had to drop off the gear at 1:00 in the morning in Boston at the Conti Forum there in Chestnut Hill, and then come back a few hours later for practice the next day. It's not an easy thing to do. I help out with equipment people when I travel because I feel obligated to, because I feel bad for those guys because it's not an easy thing. And he talked about the fact that sometimes in a weekend, not necessarily a week, in a weekend they would work 46 hours or 48 hours, whatever, with the amount of work, especially with the couple of 3-and-3s the Griffins have coming up. And that's why I wanted to ask him that question, because people think equipment managers, all they do is sharpen a couple skates, buy some sticks for the guys, give them the new sticks when they break up when they're on the ice. It is sometimes a 16-hour a day job between morning skate, getting ready for the game, after the game, cleaning the gear, getting ready for the next day. It's a long day for those guys. And, if you don't have the mental stability, it can drive you crazy. And Dog's been doing it now for almost 30 years. He's missed one season of Griffins hockey, and that was the first season when he wasn't even part of the team. He was hired before year 2. So just seeing how he is and his energy that he still has today is incredible, because it can wear on some guys. And he just continues to enjoy it and love it. And whenever I see that, I'm like, man, whenever someone complains about their job, I'm like, this guy's been doing this for how long and he still loves it? Like, that's awesome. So I was super happy for him. The ovation he got, the way the players talked about him, even Austin Watson, who's only known him for a few months, the way he talked about him. I mean, it was really cool to be there and experience that with everybody.
Yeah, it was a really awesome experience. I mean, Travis, I know you haven't been around Dog too much, just kind of getting familiar with the Grand Rapids scene, but just to, after a tough loss in Toledo on Saturday night, for a guy like Tyler Spezia to want to take a minute and just send a video message over to Dog congratulating him and all that, like, that just tells you right there how much he means to every player that's ever been around him.
Yeah, that was a really cool, touching moment, I thought. We were like, we'd wrapped interviewing him, and we were like, hey, do you want to say something to Dog? And he goes, can we do it right now? I was like, just do it. And then I was like, you asked the question, like, you're the GR guy. Like, so that was cool. I mean, congratulations to him. I haven't got to meet him yet. Hopefully one of these days I'm up there. I can maybe make that happen. You heard me on Sunday talking to the equipment manager for the Walleye. Like, I'm a total gear nerd. That's like my dream job. Like, seriously, as crazy as that might sound, that's like a dream job of mine. So he gets to live out like my dream job. So I'm jealous of him for that, but happy for him at the same time that, 2,000 games, you think about it, that's an insane number. So congratulations to him.
Especially with the same organization, even when he's had NHL offers, he's like, no, I like where I'm at, and he loves it. And the stories we've heard from him over time, like we said, we interviewed him over the summer, and God, there's a few stories in there he maybe shouldn't have told us, because looking back on it, there's probably some fines and some suspensions in there and some other things that could have happened. But he's just an absolute dream. He's a beauty, man. He's a funny dude, and I don't know when he's gonna hang it up and retire from this. I'm assuming not for a while still, but man, when he does, the Griffins won't feel the same without him in the room. That's for sure. So congrats to him again. Outside of Dog, though, there was a couple of roster changes that happened over the weekend in Grand Rapids. William Vollander returned to the lineup Friday night with a huge boost to the Griffins back end there. And, Tyler, I know you weren't at the game Friday. I'm assuming you watched a good chunk of it, though. Wally was kind of buzzing out there for being off for the amount of time he was.
For when you do sit that long and at his age too, because ever since to my recollection, since he's come to North America, outside of being scratched when he first got the shot in Detroit, he hasn't really been off the ice this much, right? And for a young kid, and you've been pretty much playing hockey your entire life, you're used to always going, especially someone of his caliber, he's not really left off the lineup card. So I expected him to have a good weekend. He had a good game, a pretty good looking game on Friday, good game on Sunday as well. And, just for someone who's off that long, you just want to see them get comfortable again. And the fact that he was active, he was, wasn't shying away from anything. He was involved in the play. That kind of shows that he can make an impact when he's given the chance.
Yeah, and it's just good to see him bounce back really quick like that and jump into the play. It doesn't look like any lingering things or sore or anything. He looked like his normal self. So, originally when this injury was said, they kept him out as a precaution, and then it turned into long-term. Nobody really knew what happened, and it's good to see the team made the right play, keeping him out for that length of time. And then the other piece is that Tim Gettinger finally cleared off of injured reserve in Detroit, put on waivers, clears, and he's back in Grand Rapids. We assume we'll see him play Friday. But I mean, Timmy G is a veteran presence who can produce offense, and it's a nice little piece to have back for the Griffins, especially on the power plays, where I felt like he made a decent impact last year on a power play that struggled. So it'll be interesting to see what he can bring to the table this year.
Yeah, I really was nervous because we saw how he was in the playoffs. We knew he was hurt. We knew that something was wrong with him. And of course, no one's going to say anything because it's the playoffs. And when I heard that he was not going to start the season on time, I was like, all right, well, yeah, that makes sense because you knew something was wrong with him last year. And I think the extended time, he probably could have came back sooner, but it was more or less just like, hey, let's make sure you're 100% healthy. And I hope he makes an impact right away, even though the power play hasn't been looking terrible over the last few weeks, I'll say. But it's going to be interesting to see where he's going to fit in this lineup because right now we're seeing the top 6 and for the Griffs kind of, it's kind of a mix of who you want to pick. You got the veterans of like Shine and Watson doing well, but then you have the CHL line that's really contributing. You don't obviously want to mess any of that up, any of that cohesion. So I'm interested to see how Watson's going to fit Gettinger in the lineup because even before the injury, this is not a knock on Tim Gettinger. It's kind of like Joel Esperance. Speed's not his game. So it's going to be interesting to see who he gets paired up with once he gets back into the lineup this week.
Yeah, I think the biggest question I have as you start to see guys come back like Gettinger, Mazur down the road, obviously, but like with Gettinger coming back right now, like who do you think the guy is that maybe ends up down here? Like, because obviously I feel like you don't want to have kids sitting. I feel like if you can get somebody down here to play, I think that's better than sitting.
Seager's the first one. It's crazy. Unfortunately, I can't remember their deals, and you guys can correct me on this. I don't know which one could go back down, but I think Ruklowski would stay here, and Becker might go back, would be the one that could go down. I don't know what that would entail.
Is he still on an ATO?
Right. So, that's a good point. So he'd have to sign a deal and make that move. And unfortunately, then, of course, Ruklowski and Becker both have good games on Sunday, so that certainly helps their stock and their chances. But yeah, I think Seager would be the first guy to go. Probably Doucette, unfortunately.
So let me ask you this question. You see Doucette starting to play really well. What about Hunter? To kind of get him back on track.
Oh, gosh, Hunter. I love Hunter, too. I love his game.
I do too. But
if he's not playing, you're right. Yeah, I guess Hunter would be a guy. And I think Hunter would be, he's a 30-goal guy in the ECHL. I tell you.
Oh, yeah.
Like the way he plays and his skill set, like when he was in North Dakota, he was not the big scorer, but that's because he didn't have to be a big scorer. And even though he still put up okay numbers given his role, and I think you gave him top 6 minutes, he could probably score a few goals in the American League. If you give him minutes down the ECHL like that, he's going to certainly find, he'll find a good groove. Just the way he's got some good speed. He's obviously got the toughness to play a good role for the Griffs down here, but and this comes to the whole roster size thing, right? With the ECHL, there's a limited roster. AHL, you can have as many guys as you want. You can have 4 goaltenders. You can have 35 guys on your roster. It wouldn't be smart. You obviously want to have guys play. And I think, to Travis' point, I think, Hunter Johannes would be a good a candidate, if you, for lack of a better term, to go to Toledo once Mazur and Gettinger come back. But we're also implying that no one from Detroit gets hurt during this time as well.
Right.
Because Cookie and you and I have talked about this after Casper, Mazur was going to be the second guy to be called up. And I got that feeling in the preseason, let alone training camp, preseason games, whatever. Once the season started, I'm like, all right, Casper's called up. It's going to be Mazur's turn. But unfortunately, Mazur got dinged up. So, I think if Mazur can come back and make, find a rhythm pretty quickly, start putting up points, showing his confidence again. Because that kid, some guys like just, play with confidence or whatever and kind of, are pretty humble. Mazur's confident. That kid knows he can play.
Oh, yeah.
If he can find that confidence quickly once he comes back in the lineup, once he comes back here, and it sounds like it still might be a couple more weeks. He's being reevaluated, I believe, this week. If he comes back sooner than later, I think that'll be important for him because we know how long it took him to get going last year after the shoulder injury. So, but yeah, the Griffins will have the Red Wings obviously will have some decisions to make once everyone gets healthy. Once again, implying that no one else gets hurt during that time.
Right, exactly. Either way, Toledo's going to get a great player, and Seager proved that he can produce. Yeah, right. Seager can produce the ECHL level. We know Hunter would produce. Becker
Doucette, you've seen it.
No, Doucette doesn't have anything to prove down there. I don't think he's going anywhere. No one's breaking up that line of him and Ammo and Cross. That line is just absolutely buzzing right now. But Becker is an interesting one because I think he's finding his footing in the AHL a lot quicker than I thought he would. I mean, we'll obviously talk about him more later on because he had his first pro goal, but I'm liking what I'm seeing from this kid. He's gritty. He plays his position smart, and I don't know if I'd send him to Toledo. I think I'd keep him up here, but again, it comes to you want the kids to be playing games. He's still eligible to go back to juniors at the end of the ATO, actually, too. So I don't think they'll do that. I think he's proved enough, putting up 92 points last year, the WHL. I don't think he needs to go back and do anything there. I think ECHL or AHL is where he belongs, and I don't know. This will be interesting piece to follow for us, but we are excited to see what Gettinger can do in this already impressive Griffins lineup. And when Mazur comes back, it's going to get even more impressive. But outside of that, that's all the news and updates for the team there. We'll dive into the games here. So let's talk about Friday night. And this one looks a lot worse on paper than what it actually was when you're watching it in person. Griffins lose this one 5-2, and you hear that and you go, oh God, Coase had a bad night. The team had a bad night. Not really. I mean, it was a close game up until the last about 5 minutes. Iowa got a goal, and then they added another one shortly after that. But it's just, a game where I felt like Iowa tried to impose their will on Grand Rapids, and Grand Rapids did a great job trying to play their game for 2.5 periods, and then Iowa just finally took over. I mean, Tyler, biggest takeaway from this game for you?
Well, it's what Watson said after the game, right? And I talked to a couple guys on Sunday about it. I'm like, was practice really that hard this week? And because that's what he said, had a hard week of practice, and it kind of wore the guys a little bit. And you saw it a little. You saw some fatigue come out in the third period. I think that's what they believe led to that tough final 20 minutes. But you know what? Sometimes these losses are good for a team, right? I mean, you go on a 5-game win streak, things are looking good. It's like last year we had the long point streak. I thought the Griffins couldn't lose a game normally, right? And sometimes you need a loss like this. And I know it's weird to say that now. Here we are in November after the November we had last season and the season before. But it's kind of a good thing to kind of, you know what? We had a tough week of practice because this is going to sound crazy, but I think what the Griffins worked on this week after being able to have a full 5 days to, practice power play, 5-on-5 game, work on certain things. They didn't really look at Friday as an important game. I say that, I know that's going to maybe get taken out of context, but I mean, like, they're trying to work on things and so they can improve, so they can get better, so they can clean things up. How Friday went, that's whatever. What we saw on Sunday, and we'll get to that, I think that's what they were more or less shooting for. Friday was a game on their schedule that they know they had to play, but they were working on things all week, trying to grind things out of these guys so they could be better, not this weekend, but later on this season when the games are a little bit more important. So I'm not taking Fridays. I mean, it's a tough loss, obviously. Kosa, tried to do everything he could, but unfortunately just didn't pan out. But, that's just how the puck bounces, and sometimes you win games, sometimes you lose games. So maybe it's because of how we are now after how Sunday went. We're looking at it as they lost. Had they lost Sunday, this might be a different conversation, but I don't look much into it, though.
And I mean, you got to look at too. Dylan Ferguson for Iowa played a really good game in goal. Not that the Griffins had a ton of shots, but some of the high danger chances, he did make some really big saves.
Someone's got to take Zan McIntyre's role with that team, so why not Ferguson?
I mean, he played well, and he's got good numbers so far this season. I mean, Trav, I know you didn't watch the game, but looking through the highlights and just some of the notes on the game, any thoughts? Was it beyond what we've already added?
Lombardi with an unbelievable goal.
Dude, let's talk about it.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Like the first, so when I like you said, I didn't watch the game, but like today when I was going through preparing, I seen that goal, and the first player that came to my mind was Datsuk.
Yep,
the way he kind of stole the puck away and then made the little move and short side, threw it upstairs. I was like, this is like a ghost of Pavel Datsuk almost. I've seen this before. That's the first thing that came to my head.
Yeah, the goal was, I asked him post-game, I was like, kind of walk me through that goal. It's really everything that you talked about working on last season and the offseason kind of coming together in one motion here. And, he was really happy with the result there. And when you're looking at it from a fan perspective, it was a sick goal. Just to be able to walk in like that, make those couple moves and get it past the goalie, that was everything. And that's the goal that kicked off the game. And that's where I watched that, but I'm like, oh, this is going to be one of those games. This Lion's going to go out here and do some crazy things tonight. Obviously, it didn't work out that way, but Ammo just continues to get better and better every game, and the confidence level he's playing with out there is unreal right now.
Well, it's crazy because we remember how timid he was last season, right?
Yeah.
I mean, borderline scared on a team that was really good, obviously. And Lombardi, I'm coming into this year, I'm like, is he actually going to improve? Because if not, then all this talk we're doing of him being a quality prospect is going to the wayside. Now here he is. He's moving himself up to the, especially with, yes, there's Austin Watson, who's going to obviously be a guy that Detroit's going to look at easily calling up, but he's closing in on that spot of being like fourth or fifth on their selection list right now for the Wings to call up. I'm gonna keep Mazur up there, even though he's not healthy right now, because I think once he comes back, they're gonna be ready for him. And you might obviously throw Kosa up there, but I think Lombardi's getting a lot closer to being a guy that can play in the NHL, much closer than he was last year, and much closer than I believe coming into this season, because of how he's playing and the confidence that he's showing. This is the guy that we saw. What he's doing right now is what we saw him doing in Flint against 16 and 17-year-olds and 18-year-olds. Now he's doing it against professionals on a consistent basis. Yes, you can look at the fact that he's leading the team in goals. He's up there in points and doing all these great things on the box score, but you watch him play and you see the defensive awareness is improving. His confidence in the own zone and being able to keep up with the speed and the physicality of the AHL. He's doing all of these things right, and he's improving, and it's just kind of snowballing in the right direction for him right now.
I think my favorite thing that he has improved on is, like you said, the defensive game is improving, but being more physical, being able to actually bump guys off the puck instead of getting bounced off the puck. Like, we all knew he put on size over the offseason, but you hear that all the time when you're like, okay, will that do anything?
No offense to Lombo, but that bar was low.
It was, but he put on that size and didn't lose his speed. Like, he still flies while he's out there. And like you said, the box score, he's 14 points on the season, leading the team in points, 6 assists, 8 goals, leading the team in goals. Like, it's exactly what you want to see from him. And I think if he can continue this pace all season, it's a guy that you start talking about in the offseason this year going, does he get the Marco Kasper treatment? He starts in Grand Rapids, sure, but when he gets called to Detroit, we probably don't see him again. And if he can do that, it's a real possibility.
Yeah. And you know what? I mean, well, I think he's going to be a guy that's going to get a few up and downs. I don't think he's going to get the Philip Zadina treatment. I hope not, because I think that screwed that poor kid. Or even the Berggren treatment last year or a couple years ago. But I think he'll get up. He'll get a few games, come back down, because I think he'll get that taste. And I think for a guy, especially like Lombardi, I think he needs to see that next level firsthand. Training camp, I know everyone talks about training camp and preseason games. It's not the same as being in the regular season and seeing. And that's why being a black ace for a team in the playoffs is important too, because you still get to see firsthand what the big guns are doing on a day-to-day basis and how they prepare, how they approach the game, how they approach practice during the week on an off day or an optional skate. I think if he sees that up there, then he knows he can bring that back down here, get a little bit better. And then, yes, eventually on this path that he's going right now, if he keeps things going, he's going in the right direction, that he'll be up in the NHL for a good considerable time.
And for being a late round draft pick, we obviously know he was only a late round draft pick because COVID and all that stuff. He would have been drafted a lot higher, but it feels like the Wings found a gem, and that's beautiful. And honestly, he's one of my favorite guys to talk to post game, because he always, even after a tough loss, he'll always give you good answers. He always is very analytical about the game and understands how to talk about it. And he's just overall just a genuinely good kid. So
also
love what we're seeing
from last year as well, because that kid was a mouse last year.
I won't say that, because he did an interview with us, and he was a
your guys' interview,
I know.
Post game, I'm talking.
Yeah, no, that's fair. It's a tough environment, even if it's just us two standing there. It's a tough thing to do. Trav, what do you got to add there?
I just got to ask Tyler the question that we've talked about a bunch of times. Should he make that step, Tyler, to the NHL? Winger or center?
So here's the thing. As someone who has watched and supported the Toronto Maple Leafs for many years, William Nylander came into the Leaf system as a center, and a good center at that. Did so at the Marlies, the American League level, was great. It hasn't panned out. at the NHL level. Now, I'm not saying it couldn't work for Amadeus Lombardi, but if you're a guy in his situation and there's an opportunity to get called up, you're not going to say, I can't come up. I can't play the wing. You're going to get called up and you're going to play where you're told. Right.
Yeah.
And and I think that's what, and they might, obviously, if he gets called up, he can play center, give him a shot, put him at center, it happens. But I can easily see him be a guy that plays down the middle, be a third line center, fourth line center. But I think if you put him on the wing and you let him use his speed down the wing, maybe not make him the most keen, relied upon forward in the defensive zone, I think you can see him excel. And I'm not trying to compare Lombardi to Nylander here, but with Nylander, he's not a defensive guy, so they just kind of throw him out there. I'm like, hey, Nylander, just fly down the right wing side, make a couple moves and score. We know Lombardi can do that. If Lombardi can come down on the left wing and do his thing without any problem, let him go. Let him play wing. It's going to be an experiment process to see where he fits in, because the Leafs have tried it at center with Nylander. It just doesn't work. Sometimes going from the AHL to the NHL just doesn't translate for some guys. And I think Lombo could easily be a winger. I think where he is now, I believe he will be, if you put him in the NHL today, I think he'd be a more effective player on the wing, given his game, than he would be center. But I'm not saying that could not be changed. He couldn't develop that over his time and become an NHL center. But where he's at now, I think he'd be better on the wing.
I completely agree with you. I think, like, you look at some of the people ahead of him, like Larkin, Casper, Danielson, like, you're probably looking, there's your top 3 centers of your future. Like, I feel like there's too much skill to bury him on the fourth line as a center when you could put him on the wing and let him use the tools he has offensively. Like, you're seeing it on a nightly basis at this year in the American League. Like, there's just so much skill and potential there. I feel like it'd be a waste to play in the fourth line.
And it's crazy because I know everyone loves to look at the Steve Yzerman story of Scotty Bowman came in and made him a two-way center. It helped that Steve Yzerman was an effective center, an effective scoring threat, a 65-goal guy before Scotty Bowman got there. And yes, he did adjust and became a Selke Trophy winner. That doesn't work out for everybody. Everyone thinks that they need to work on their defensive game, become a defensive player. Someone told Steven Stamkos this years ago, because Steven Stamkos, you know what, he'll play the penalty kill every so often, but he's not a defensive stalwart. He's not a Selke candidate ever. They told him I can't remember which coach told him, if it was a skills coach, if it was one of the assistants in Tampa back in the day, but they said, work on your strength 80% of the time and your weaknesses 20% of the time. If you're a skillful speedster down the wing and can make plays offensively better than you are a defensive-minded winger or center in the defensive zone, work on scoring more so, because you're going to become a much more effective player faster than you would be trying to develop into a two-way player. Now, that doesn't mean Lombardi can't be a good two-way player, but I'm just saying, like, right now, like, hey, you can be an offensive threat in the league eventually. I would focus on trying to put up 40, 50, 60 points in the American League rather than try to become a 200-foot player, because that's the stuff that gets you buried in the minors, unfortunately. And I'm not going to point out any names, but we've seen guys that, try to develop their game, become a 200-foot player, and they become lifelong AHLers.
Yeah, I think the thing that excites me the most, though, when you talk about him potentially being on the wing in Detroit, if you look at, let's say all the cards fall as fans hope they will, and you have Danielson as a second line center, Casper as a third line center. If he's playing second or third line wing, he's going to have amazing chemistry with whoever's at that center based on their time together in GR. And that's only
And it might be
cross
Hanas, you never know.
I mean, dude, honestly, he's turned it on this season, and I'm glad to see it. He's not a lost prospect. He's finding his way, and he's having fun out there. You can tell his mood is a lot happier this year than it was last year. And obviously, who would be happy with the season he had last year? He knew he could do better than that. But I mean, God, even hearing him mock Ruklowski's accent as we were heading into the interview last night cracked me up. Like, that was fantastic. But enough about Lambo there. We could talk about him for a while, honestly, because he continues to produce well. We got to talk about that Snively goal as well in this game. Elmer Soderblom makes an incredible play in the slot to keep possession of the puck, makes a great no-look pass over to Snively, who goes in, just walks it on the goalie and buries it. Like, we asked Waddy after the game, obviously Elmer still hasn't found the back of the net himself, and is it a concern? But, he mentioned, look at him. He's making plays, he's getting assists, and he's out there getting opportunities. He has zero concern with his production right now because he is either producing opportunities or getting chances himself. And that play right there just shows all the skill that he still does have, and there's still a lot of potential with this kid to find his way in this league.
The last 9 months for Elmer Soderblom have been probably the most productive and most efficient 9 months or time span since coming to North America. I know everyone got all crazy about him becoming, joining the NHL as an 18-year-old and being on that big Redwood line, but it set him back. I'm not afraid to say it set him back development wise, just because he's a big, tall drink of water and he's got the reach and he had a good preseason. Listen, it wrecked him. It wrecked his confidence, hurt him for an entire season and a half. Once he got a little bit stronger, got a little bit older, got a little bit smarter, started working a lot with Edmondson and Berger and kind of seeing them like those were last year. Those guys were really the group that kind of said, we need to figure things out because we know we can get to the next level. Edmondson had the taste. Bergeron had pretty much the entire 22-23 year in Detroit. They all wanted to get back there. And they all really bunkered down and started focusing on doing the little things right. And I think Elmer's starting to find that confidence again that I'm not sure where I put him on the list, the depth chart of getting called up and, what that order might be. But he's certainly looking more like the guy that we believed he was going to be before the 22-23 season when he got the chance with the Red Wings. And that right there is an important aspect in his development because he's starting, I don't want to say he's getting a little more humble, but he's knowing that he needs to work a little bit harder. And yes, the goals will come for a guy like him, but you're seeing him doing things away from the puck along with the puck that he was not doing a couple seasons ago.
We're even seeing some more aggression from him. I mean, I'm not going to skip too far ahead to Sunday's game, but he even attempted to drop the mitts and go. Like, look at him go, man. Like, you can tell he's confident right now. He's feeling good. And we always joke on this show that we love a pissed off Elmer Soderblom because when he goes out there angry, he's throwing the body. The hit he threw Sunday was enormous. Like, it was one of the biggest hits I think we've seen from Grand Rapids this season, and that says a lot with Austin Watson on your team. But he is playing well. Like, don't let the stats fool you if you're looking into this team and not watching these games. He is playing very well. He will find the back of the net eventually, but just watch his play, watch his puck movement. He's been very solid with all of that. So I'm excited to see what this season does bring for him, and just know that the prospect in him, it's not lost. Like, there's still a lot of potential with this guy. And I will echo Tyler's point that start in Detroit, it ruined him 100%. 100%. I will stand on that mountain with you there, buddy.
It pushed him back and didn't help him. I don't say it ruined him because obviously it ruined him. That means he'd be done, right?
That's true.
It did not help the cause. How about that?
No. A couple other quick notes from this game too before we move on to the ad break here. We saw a guy drop the gloves that I didn't expect to see drop the gloves in this game in Sheldon Dries. That was an interesting moment there. He held his own in the fight too, did pretty well, and then an interesting situation where the Iowa player is kind of skating in as Kosa plays the puck. They kind of collide with each other. I think it was a situation where I couldn't tell if Kosa was mad or what. And then you could tell he was mad when he grabbed the guy's stick and threw it into the corner. And then Dom Shine, of course, sees his goalie on the ground, as he says after the game, and turns around and just goes and handles business with a beautiful fight from him. We don't see him do it much anymore. We're seeing a lot more of the offensive side of Dominic Shine, but boy can still throw him. That's for sure. He had the guy bleeding after the first punch. So credit to Shiner there for identifying a situation and going to stand up for his guy, even though it was a situation where he needed to. Probably not, but oh man, the arena loved it.
Well, it was Damon Hunt that did it for the Wild, and you just watch it back. He blows a tire, and here's the thing: as someone who's been ran into on accident as a goalie, you don't see that. You just get hit, and you're like, I'd be angry too. I've punched guys in the face for no reason. Well, sorry. In the moment, I thought I had a reason, but looking back, I'm like, you know what? I probably didn't because my guy pushed him into me, but whatever. But yeah, no. Shine him in the postgame is like, oh, I just saw them both laying on the ground and the crowd was going crazy. So I went over there to check things out and took care of business.
And that he did. I know, Trav, you probably saw that fight highlight. What'd you think of that one?
I was honestly more surprised that Kosa didn't try to kill the guy. Like, because I seen the anger aggression out of him a couple times down here to where like he wouldn't, like, he's not backing down from somebody. And like, swear to God, like if that guy ever gets in a goalie fight, the reach advantage is gonna be all him. Like, it's it was good to see Shine come flying down the ice and like stand up for him, but at the same time, I was waiting for Costa to just block her, the poor guy, at the same time, because when he grabbed his stick and like just threw it, I was like, oh, he's pissed. I was like,
Well,
we saw that a lot from Costa at the end of last year, like especially against the many times he played Rockford. He'd be yelling at the ref too, and he would just be getting. Of course, when you ask him after the game, like, well, I just a little mad and didn't like how things were going. Super humble about it and super quiet about it, but you could tell he's getting angry. And unfortunately, I think he kind of would understand the whatever the code is in hockey, that if he ever got into a fight where you have to go up against another goalie, there's not many guys he'd be fairly matched with. So I don't think he could fight anybody. Like, he'd have to square off with, I can't think of a guy off the top of my head right now. I'd have to go up against like Isaac Phillips for Rockford, because it's the only guy that's close to the same size, right? Because
yeah, that's about it. I mean, we almost got close last year with the Toasters game against Belleville. Like they skated to center. They were ready to go, but the Belleville goalie did not want to go. So
yeah, because he saw Kosa. Well, it's funny. Before the season, I was at their training camp, if you will, for the Griffs, and Andrew Streidel, the PR assistant for the Griffs, he was asking him how tall you want to be this year. It's like, yeah, it's 6'7", or yeah, you want to be 6'6" or 6'7"? And Kosa's like, yeah, you can put me at 6'7". And I'm like, you want to do it on skates? And he's like, no, I can't be 6'10". It's like, it'd scare people.
He's a funny dude that plays with an edge, man. I love it.
I wonder if that's just like part of like when he's confident, if he just like, if that just kind of is part of him, like. Because he showed that kind of like aggression and like not backing down, like when he was on that 10-0 run in Toledo. Like, you've seen it really started to come out then. And now with how well he played at the end of last year and how well he's playing this year, I feel like that's just how he is.
It's just a swagger he has, man.
Which is funny because you see John Gibson, you see Jordan Bennington, even Jeremy Swayman a little bit. If they get ticked off, they get off their game. They fall. That was myself. When I didn't play, if I was on the bench in a game, I was backing up, I would run my mouth till kingdom come. But when I was on the ice, I had to avoid that because it took me away from focusing on the play. If you can somehow manage that anger and turn it into good, that's dangerous, because that means you have because why do you all have, I don't say why do you have enforcers, but why do you have guys try to pick at the superstars and get them angry and get them mad and get them to show emotion? Because typically it gets them off their game. It's not even a hockey thing. It's a human thing. But if Kosa can use that anger and play well, that's almost inhuman in a way.
It really is. I've never seen him take like a hit or a run and gets run into or whatever and not like get off his game. He just bounces right back. I think it just fires him up more and he just gets better. Like, I remember a couple different games where he gets run into in the net. I think it was against Rockford, and he shuts him out the rest of the game after that with some incredible saves. So I wouldn't advise trying to piss him off if you're the other team, because it makes him better. So maybe reverse that strategy and just leave him alone. What we've noticed, if he doesn't face a lot of shots early, that's when he's kind of off his game. He likes to see the puck early. So if you want a bad coast that night, don't shoot the puck. Other teams, that's my advice to you.
I'll tell you this though. I mean, if he ever gets into a fight this year, it's good omen for the Griffs, because it seems like whenever there's a goalie fight, things go well. Ask Peter Mrazek in the 2013 Calder Cup team.
Oh God, he does need to do it this year.
Drew Promesso.
Oh no. Well, on that note, I think it's a good point to send it to the ad break. When we come back from the ad, we'll recap Sunday's game and a couple other bits and pieces on the team. But even though he's not here, Nick will go read the ad now.
The quest for the Stanley Cup starts now. The puck's dropping on the 24-25 season. Get in on all of the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. Super easy for the first timers to get started. Try betting on something simple like picking a team to win. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app, select your team, and place your first bet. With the Red Wings opening the season on Thursday, October 10th, the current line is Detroit Red Wings a minus 130 on the money line. Odds and lines are subject to change between now and then. And if you are new to DraftKings, listen up. New customers bet $5 to get $200 and bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $200 and bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 778-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Blue Hill Casino and Resort, Kansas, 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming restrictions, see tkng.co/ice. Copyright NHL 2024. All rights reserved. Hockey is in the air, and the throw of the game is bringing Griffin fans from all over the state to the Van Andel Arena. So when you're looking to get tickets, your number one choice should be Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. You can see players like Marco Kasper and Sebastian Cossa before they make their way to the wings, and you get the seat views before you buy, so you can see what it looks like from where you'll be sitting, which is one of my favorite things about Game Time. Curated deals make it easier to find the best price on great seats, and with the lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss protection, and more. Game Time should be your number one destination for your tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Pick. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code THPN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code THPN for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time.
And welcome back. All right, let's dive into Sunday's game, the dogs game, all the things that you could say about this one. It was a fun one. The Griffins walk away from this one with a 5-2 win. And, you know, like Tyler echoed in the beginning here, this is really what they were working towards this week through practice and everything. This is the performance you'd expected from them. And, yeah, it was a fun one to watch. You had goals from a lot of different guys. You had a couple fights. Game got rough here and there. But overall, just a great bounce back where the Griffins played to their identity. They played their style of hockey, did not let Iowa get under their skin, got under their skin, and kind of exposed Jesper Wallstedt to what he's kind of turned into this season. We'll talk about that more in a minute, but just overall takes from this game before we dive into our talking points, Tyler.
Oh, just a good game. They started hot. It took them a little bit to get their first shot on goal, but they kept things simple. They played fast once they got going. The second half of that first period, they really started to get some opportunities. Obviously, got a couple of power plays that allowed them to kind of get some momentum offensively, and they never looked back. Even when Iowa got within a goal there, it was 2-1 after the first period. It never felt as close as that. They took over in the second period. And how about this? For the second time this year, the Griffins have outshot their opponent. How about that? I mean, granted, I know it's a dumb stat to look at. It's like plus minus. Like, how can you really judge? But this game really felt like you can look at the box score and say the Griffins took control and they won this game. Unlike Friday night, where you see the box score, I'm like, well, yeah, things kind of went wayside, but it was actually a closer game than it looked. This looked like a 5-2 win for the Griffins, where they outshot their opponent. They outplayed their opponent. The special teams is clicking. The power play gets a goal. They almost got 2 goals. They just missed it on the, oh gosh, who scored the second goal? Sheldon Dry's goal. There we go. They looked confident. They played confident. And I think, and I said, losing on Friday losing a game like that can help a team because it helps them refocus. They had the day off on Saturday. They come back Sunday. They played hungry and they won the game.
I think we just want to know how much money was on the board for the guy that scored the most in this game for Dogs game. That's what I want to know. Because I heard Eric Zane drop the hint at the end of the game, said the guy who gets the money. And I'm like, there was something on the board for this game for sure, 100%. And Lambo got it. But overall thoughts from you, Trav. Again, I know you didn't watch the game. You were at the Walleye game doing our wonderful Walleye coverage there. Just overall thoughts on this one before we dive into the points.
So I'm going to go way off what I normally have to provide because Tyler did a phenomenal job breaking down what kind of happened. I'm gonna go with the crazy fan take here. Did the WWE leave the ring up in the middle of Van Andel? Because this game was utter chaos as far as
because they had Monday
physicality.
Night Raw there last week.
Yeah, right. Oh,
But-
dude, that Lagesson takedown was something.
Yeah, between Lagesson and then Watson and Soderblom, I just was like, holy criminy.
These two teams don't like each other. That's very
see
clear.
that.
I mean, I said it to Tyler at the game. Iowa came in and played, he's not the head coach of Iowa. Ben Simon, former Griffins coach, is the assistant coach. They played a Ben Simon style of game. You play rough and tough and you win a few games here and there and you throw the body around and do the thing and you might win a couple. That's exactly what they did on Friday. And the Griffins answered back with a lot of physicality in this game. And yeah, it was the fans were loving it.
It was a game that I think proved that the Griffins can win without having to rely on a goaltender, without having to rely on their offensive stars to step up, even though some of them did, obviously. That's important for showing the depth of a team, the fact that they can win in multiple ways, right? Because how many times last year, even during that run, that long point streak, did Sebastian Cossa have to stand on his head? Right?
Yeah, a lot.
How many times? And they really gave him the reins, and they really relied on Cossa to really push them back into the playoffs and up the division. And even in parts of early on this year, Billy Husso's pitched a couple of really good games because he's had to. Cossa's played some really good games because he's had to. The fact that they went out there and imposed their game, they played hard, and they didn't let Iowa up at all because they imposed, I don't mean to sound like a broken record, imposed their will, doing so physically. And having guys like Elmer Soderblom throw big hits and Lagesson get a little nasty and Austin Watson doing his thing, showing that, yeah, you want to try to push us around, we can push back. That, first off, just shows how tight this group is, because some teams aren't, some teams are more of a club than a team, that they like, oh, our guy got hit or our guy's getting roughed up. Well, tough nuts. I'm going to go to the bench and cool off. No, you see Austin Watson after Elmer Soderblom throws a massive hit on Ryan O'Rourke.
Huge.
Yeah. Do we want to run to that now or do we want to wait on that?
No, let's go.
We can run to it now if you want to. Let's go.
Yeah. So for those that haven't seen the hit, obviously it's posted here on the Hockeytown West Twitter page and it's on the highlight reel. The hit by Soderblom, outside of the fact that it's a couple feet from the boards, is a clean hit. It's just the fact that Elmer Soderblom's 6'9", 6'10" on skates. The only reason why it looked bad is because O'Rourke kind of got got the wind knocked out of him. And Soderblom was ready to throw him because was it Reese Johnson and it was David Spacek that came over. And I think who was the other? There was one more guy that was thought about getting into it. Caden Bankier, who actually scored in this game. They kind of came out to Soderblom, and then Watson went in there and briefly went Dustin Buffalo and grabbed two guys at once trying to play bodyguard, which is funny because Watson's a big dude. Strong, muscular guy, but Soderblom's got to reach and he's a little bit taller. But then Watson took Johnson, then Soderblom started to throw hands a little bit too. Cause this guy's standing here, so I may as well fight him. I may as well take care of business. And it's one of those things that moments like that, that's where you see that this is a team. And I'm gonna get to Austin Watson here in a second, but and then you see William Lagesson do his thing, which was with Raska, which Cookie, I kind of broke this down. No one really noticed on that play because unfortunately the highlights didn't really show how long this feud kind of happened. Raska kind of gave Lagesson a can opener before that.
He did.
And the puck gets chipped down in the Griffin zone. Lagesson's going for the puck, but then he sees 74 and he's like, nah, I'm taking this one. And so pretty much he let up at the last second because had he not, that would have been a certified charging call because he was skating from the blue line in at full tilt to lay it out. And then, of course, they started, they kept slashing each other. And then Lagesson just decided, I'm going to take you down and put you in a good old-fashioned rear naked choke. And, of course, the camera inside the arena there on the broadcast feed just had it zoomed in and seeing Raska tap out is – first of all, I know some people are like, oh, that should be suspendable.
He didn't have it locked in.
As someone who watches wrestling and watches the UFC a little bit on the side, that was not going to hurt anybody. I think
No.
Raskin was just sick of being held on to, and he couldn't move because Lageson's a strong dude. Like, he had him just in a glorified bear hug that was around his neck area. If he was being choked out, well, I'd like him to come out and say it. But from what I saw, it looked like he was just not happy that he was literally being put in a beautiful textbook chokehold.
And like, credit to Lagesson, the man took a puck to the face Friday night and left the game, got stitched up from what Waddy said. And he goes out there and he's still willing to get in the mix. And I mean, you've seen Lagesson a lot longer than we have. That's not really part of his game, or has it been for a long time?
No, even a couple of years ago when he's on the American League deal with just Chicago, like he wants to be just a solid, reliable two-way guy, and
Which is what he is.
Well, yes, but I mean, like he doesn't really have that physical side, that nastiness side, and I just think this year he's trying to find a different gear to show he can stand out. And for someone in his spot who is really a bubble player, who could be in the NHL but isn't, they just don't have enough room for him, and obviously the Wings don't have that high of a regard as the Leafs did when Lagesson was with them. So I think if he continues to show that nasty side and he can keep it within check, I think that'll be important because, and that's why I'm going to tie in Austin Watson for this. We kind of talked off about what the Wings need to get things turned around. I think they don't need a new coach. I'm sorry. I think they need a certain level of nastiness that makes teams uneasy when they play them. Because you can come to Detroit right now, and unless the Wings offense is going and you get into a shootout, it's not a tough team to play physically. I know I'm going to get a lot of heat with that with some people.
It's not, though.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, you can, if there's it's crazy to think, like, I know 08 was such a good Wings team because they had Datsuk and Zetterberg and Osgood and Hasek and Lidstrom and all that. But Babcock and Kenny Holland thought they were missing something. So what do? They resonate Darren McCarty. And it kind of helped them after a really bad, they had a really rough stretch. I think it was like this January and February. They were really bad. McCarty comes in, they figure things out. They win the President's Trophy and go on to win the Cup. I'm not saying they need to bring back some veteran, but you have an Austin Watson in your system. You have a Lagesson that's showing some nastiness. I know you want to keep guys that, you want to give guys opportunities to play and whatnot, but if you want to win hockey games, you got to have character guys in the room. And say what you want about Austin Watson, he is that guy that you want right now. He cares about what he's doing with Grand Rapids. He's cared about the guys, these kids, these prospects he's playing with. He wants them to do well. He's trying to help them out. And that doesn't come lightly for some guys. And a guy in his situation for the last couple of years with Ottawa, he was a top 6 guy. Now, you could probably say that's
Tyler, go back to where you said that doesn't happen for those guys, or it doesn't come out for that. You got really staticky on my end.
Oh, okay.
I think it was just an internet thing, but just go back to that.
For some guys don't take that role seriously. It doesn't happen for them. Some guys don't necessarily look at being with prospects like, oh gosh, here I am down in the American League. This is not good. This is the end. And he's taken his role with the Griffins as kind of a prideful thing. Like, I need to do something right. But you can see that with that energy, he can make an impact in the next level. Because he was a guy that was a go-to player for the Senators for the last couple of years, and he was a really big part of the Predators and their success the years before that. And to come down in the American League and still have a good attitude about it, I don't know how you don't want him in the NHL right now. Because I think Watson and Lagesson, in a way, can give the Wings an extra gear that they don't have right now. They don't have that energy. They don't have that bite in their game that makes teams fearful to play them. I'm not saying they need guys to go out there and fight like crazy and punch everyone in the face. But when you come into LCA, you should have something that the other team doesn't want to see, that they fear a little bit. The Wings don't have that. The Griffins do, with guys like Watson and Lagesson and even Dan Watson. I'm pretty sure if Dan Watson had his skates on, he'd probably fight somebody. Like, they have these tools that the Red Wings don't have, and it's working for them right now.
And we even heard Waddy talk about, he talked about Austin Watson, not really knowing, he knew about his game, knows what he brings to the table there, but didn't know what he would be to the guys in the room and just in the locker room itself. He's brought a whole new element to this team that it's made it what it is. Like, he deserves a lot of credit for where the Griffins are at right now, especially playing with two guys like Nate Danielson and Elmer Soderblom right now. He's got those guys playing a different style of game too, learning his way. Danielson's got a side of grit to him that nobody knew about when he came in being a prospect here. He's not afraid to get in the mix. Not that we want him fighting, but he's willing to stand up for his teammates, stand up for himself out there. I mean, hell, we saw it in the first road trip to Rockford. He was mixing it up out there, and that was really early on, and he still has that to this point. Now every guy, it seems like, has just a little extra swagger knowing that he's on the bench, and whoever messes with them is going to have to answer to him, and I wouldn't want to answer to him. He's a nice guy to talk to. He's a genuinely nice person, but he's a scary dude.
I mean, Trav, I don't know how far back your hockey memory goes, but the certain GM of the Detroit Red Wings, Steve Yzerman, he kind of got some bravery and some confidence because he got put on the ice when Jacques Demers was the coach back in the days in the 80s and early 90s. Bob Probert was on the ice with Yzerman a lot and kind of helped him out pretty good, I would think. So why not try to use that at the higher level, right?
Yeah, it all kind of, it's funny we're talking about this, and it takes me back to a couple people we talked to over the summer and what Toledo
Storm
had
guys
with the Storm. Like,
yeah.
Like you talked to, like, we had Ian Duncan on, like, and he even said, like, look, we can score. You want to skate? We'll skate with you. You want to score? We'll score against you. You want to fight? Well, we can do that too. Like, sometimes you just need that, like, presence. Like you said, like, sometimes you just need that sandpaper. Like, look, people can come at me for all you want. I don't think we used Klim Kostin at all the right way. Like, I loved Klim Kostin. The Klim Reaper is, like, I loved him. I thought he was a great piece for us. But, like, Austin Watson can provide that same thing for way less money than what Kostin was making. And I completely agree with you, Tyler. Like, you have to have something that when a team comes into your building, like, you got to have some sort of fear, like, man, I got to go on the ice and Austin Watson's out there. Like, this dude's a mean player. You need some mean in your life. That's where, like, in the summer, like, they were talking about, like, Trouba possibly coming to Detroit. Like, that would have added some mean element. Like, you got to have some sandpaper somewhere. And, like, Watson showing it in GR, and it's rubbing off. Like Brandon said, you've seen Nate do it. Hunter's not scared to go in the corners and go against guys in battle. Like, and Doucette, I mean, like, Hawkins even told us last year, like, look, Doucette, like, he's not very tall, but dude's a brick shithouse basically, and, like, will not back down from anybody. Like, it's just, like, kind of, it's a mindset, and, like, when one guy does it, it rubs off. Like Austin, like you're saying with Austin Watson, like, it just rubs off on other people. It's easy to see, and it's easy to follow when somebody's doing it, and it's like, I call it the big brother. Like, he's like the big brother of the team. Like, when you have somebody
he is one
like
of the
that
older guys. It's kind of easy, right?
Well, I don't mean like that. I mean like the guy that'll stick up for you. Like, when you have somebody like that in your corner, I think that does wonders.
Yeah, as much as he would help Detroit, I don't want him to get called up because with the Griffins, like, we've seen them without him, and they definitely are a little more on the shyer side on that stuff. Not that they don't have enough grit in the lineup to back it up, but I mean, it seems like everybody on this team, outside of maybe one or three players, would drop the gloves with you if you deserved it at this point. I mean, seeing Dries drop him Friday night blew my mind, and seeing Elmer finally, he did drop him. He threw a couple good right-handers out there too. The in-arena feed didn't catch it, but I think it was Octopus Thrower was able to share that on Twitter there. We reshared it. You can find it there if you want to see Elmer chuck him for the first time. But at the same time, like, it's just, the Griffins are tough to play against. Defensively, they are shutting down teams left and right. Even with low shot count and low goal totals in the beginning of the season, they were still winning games because defensively they are annoying to play against. They are great at shutting teams down. Now you're adding a physical element to that too. It's fantastic. And the scoring is coming through guys all up and down the lineup. If the first line's not producing one night, it's okay. The second and third line are going to produce. The second and third line are having a rough night. The fourth line and first line are going to go out there and produce. It's something special. Like, when I asked Dog this week if this team reminded him of any other team, he said 2013 right off the bat. No hesitation. And I know we said that last year too, and look at how great that team was. but the leadership in this team feels different this year with the guys that they have. And I think something really special is brewing. And especially when you see the little post-game videos the Griffins share, the one they did for Dogs game, of course, they gave him the chain and both belts at the end of the game, but it just feels like a brotherhood for this team. And that's something that until Wadi's gotten here, it's something that this team's lacked for a long, long time.
I wouldn't say lacked, it was non-existent. It was,
yeah.
There was a whole different, it was a different era.
Yeah. But outside of this game, too, we got to talk about, obviously, Andre Betcher gets his first pro goal. It was a great goal, great passing play right off the faceoff. He has a wide open net to fire it past Wallstead. Talked to him after the game, his first post-game interview in the pros, and he handled it well. But honestly, his play so far, he seems to be fitting in really well with this team.
Yeah, and it was fitting that Jakub Bukowski got the assist on the goal, who Bukowski, of course, scored in the game as well before a certain reporter mixed up the two during the post-game pressers. But we don't need to talk about that.
We both did it.
Well, you didn't tell me anything. You just let me go like a buffoon. Anyways, nothing happened. It's all hearsay. For a guy that doesn't get in the lineup every game, just seeing him start to get that confidence, because when you're a player, and we've kind of seen it with Emil Vero a little bit, when you're not playing all the time, you don't really get that momentum. You don't get into a rhythm. You don't find the confidence in your game. You don't find the puck doesn't end up finding you. And when you start playing a little bit more, and obviously Becker's been able to do that with guys being injured and guys being kind of called up to Detroit, sent out to Toledo, whatever, he's kind of finding just some opportunities because you kind of get that jump. You get more, if you feel like the coach is a little more confident to put you out there and keep you in the lineup, that's something that's really important for him. And he gets one. He was very humble about it. He said, "Oh, everyone else did the work, but you know what? You still got to put the puck in the 6x4." We've seen plenty of guys miss wide open nets like that. So you get that goal, you get a good feeling in your stomach here. And for a good hard stretch coming up for the Griffins here, they're going to rely on guys to come in and out of the lineup. And I think Becker's going to get a good chunk of time here, especially the way he played on Sunday.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be interesting to see and fun to watch him continue to develop here and see just where he ends up landing and the lineups going forward. It's going to be a lot of fun. Obviously, the Ammo do set Hanas line buzzing again in this game. Ammo ends up getting a... Yeah, right. Ammo gets a goal, but at the same time, it was so hard to tell who got the goal. I know it was originally announced as Hanas when you looked through the app, and then it was Lombardi's. Everyone went towards the net. They realized what they needed to do in this game was get the puck on Wallstead. If you get the puck on him, magic's gonna happen, because let's briefly talk about him here. We're not an Iowa or Minnesota podcast, but Buddy is he's struggling. He's really struggling right now, and he does not look like the same Jesper Wallstead we saw when he came into the Iowa Wild. And you'd always love those matchup games of him and Kosa against each other. The hype around it was always a lot of fun, but at the same time, right now, 4.34 goals against average right now, .86 save percentage. And when we watched him play on Sunday, kind of looked like a fish out of water out there at a lot of the points in the game. It's not what we expect from him.
Some Alex Georgiev level of stuff we got going on over here. Golly. I mean,
yikes.
It's, I was going to make a joke about, Jesper Wallstead, he's Swedish, but I can tell you right now, he looks more Swiss than anything. But it's when he got called up, was it last year or 2 years ago?
Last year.
Last year. His first game was terrible.
7 goals against and didn't get pulled.
And I'm not going to do like the Patrick Waugh thing and said that ruined everything, but like ever since then, he has been on the downward slope. I have never seen for one player, for a goalie, have one game completely wreck you to the point that what it did for Jesper Wallstead. It's painful to watch, because he was, with Wallstedt, with Askarov, with Kosa, the Central Division had the best goaltending prospects, NHL level prospects in the American Hockey League. And now Askarov's gone, and now Askarov's not doing well in San Jose, but it's San Jose, so you really can't hold that against him. But now you see Wallstedt struggles, and obviously Kosa excelling. Now Wallstedt's all of a sudden, if you want to go on the prospect list of goaltenders, I don't even know I don't know what the other 10 would be on this list, but he's fallen down that list incredibly fast. And goaltending, we've talked about it before. It's such an in between the ears business. If you don't feel comfortable and confident in yourself, you're not going to play well. And I believe had Kosa stayed up in the American League 2 years ago instead of going down to Toledo, I mean, Trav, you saw him firsthand. I don't think Kosa's the goaltender he is now because he grew up so much last season playing with Hutchinson, and then he got the reins late in the year, became the number one guy, and played number 1 minutes. But that time in the ECHL, Trav, was so important for Kosa. I'm not saying Wallstedt has to go that route this late in his career now. Not say this late, but at this point of his career. But his confidence is rattled, and unfortunately, I don't know what's going on with him off the ice, what his mindset is. But he needs to find something to turn things around here, or else the Wild are going to have to give up on him because they don't really have many other prospects in their system.
So I have a lot of thoughts on the goaltending side of the So goalie is my favorite position. When I played youth hockey,
It's a good position.
Yeah, come on, we know, right? He played goalie. This is my theory. Like you mentioned, Kosa. I remember that year, like really didn't have nothing left to prove in junior, and then he went to training camp, and at camp he had the cat eyes as his mask, and I was like, man, I was like, bring him to Toledo. Like, because I knew the roster that we had built, and I was like, you put a goalie that has that kind of potential. You have Letheman. Like, this could be a great mentor for him. He's going to play on a really good team. They're going to win a lot of games. They're going to make the playoffs. He's going to play meaningful starts. And you see it in the beginning of the year. Like, he had growing pains down here. It took time, but you've seen flashes. Letheman gets called up. Kosa has to play a lot of games in the back half of the year, and he goes on an incredible run. He did the same thing last year in GR. I think the long approach with him has helped him tremendously. I've said that countless times on this podcast. Now, Wallstedt, look, he was thrown into the worst possible first NHL game that I could think of. To be honest, at the point that he played last year, Dallas was rolling. You put him against a team that was a cup contender on the road in Dallas, and Minnesota wasn't very good last year.
Wasn't that the second half of back-to-back too?
Yeah, like it was just a recipe
for travel time. Yeah,
it was a recipe for disaster. Like that was such bad. Like they fumbled that so badly, and I felt so bad for him.
And then he came down to Iowa, who was not a good team around him in the first place.
Yeah,
and it rattled him to the point now where it's beginning to almost. I'm not going to drop the B word yet, but it's getting there, and it's getting there faster than I'm pretty sure a lot of my friends up in Minnesota would like to see.
It's one of those things where Wings fans need to be very grateful that the Wings have played the long game with Kosa, because we're continuing to see him to develop into what he is today, and he's only going to continue to get better. He impresses us more and more every game. But playing the long game and putting him in a situation that's right for him to be put into is going to pay off so well in the long run for this team. And you got to, like, Yzerman knows how to draft goalies. That's a known fact. I mean, look at what we have already. We have Coase doing what he's doing. Gylander is starting to be a real surprise down in the ECHL, playing very well.
I was about to say, I'm like, don't you remember Philip Larson?
I was avoiding that one.
You remember the
Andre Vasilevsky was a good one.
Yeah, not a big deal. He did draft him.
That's right. Yeah,
it was. He does know how to draft him.
I thought he was not as good as Andrei Makarov, Makarov. I thought he was better than Vasilevsky. I'm glad I didn't stake that claim, because that would have aged poorly.
Yeah, it would have. But it's you feel bad for Wallstedt as a person, because you don't want to see anyone go through what he's going through, and it sucks, because there was a lot of promise there. But yeah, like you said, Tyler, you don't want to throw around the B word too much yet, but it's getting dangerously close, and hopefully for his sake he can turn it around. Just not against Grand Rapids or the Red Wings in the future by any means, but at the same time, that it's wild to see, because there was so many people that watched Kosa early on in his time in Toledo and early on in his time in Grand Rapids that were like, oh, they should have picked Wallstedt. Aren't you glad we didn't now? Holy smokes.
But here's the thing though. Let's play role reversal. Let's say Kosa goes to Minnesota and Wallstedt comes here. If Wallstedt plays if they do the Kosa method with Wallstedt might be in the same boat right now. He might be the
Honestly,
guy.
You're right.
You might be the number 3 or the number 4 guy in the system. Now, granted, Kosa might, who knows how Kosa would have done in a quicker system. If he got a quicker call up, who knows how his confidence would have been. But it's all ifs and buts and candy nuts, right? Maybe Wallstedt doesn't play well here. Kosa excels in the system over there. You never know. But
Exactly.
right now what we're seeing is one guy excel to the point of he's going to be in the NHL if the Cards play right next year against a guy that might be playing in the SHL in 2 years. The way that's trending. That's how things are right now.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, we won't see Iowa again until February, so who knows what things will look like by that point, but I don't know. It's going to be interesting to watch, but we'll move on from this game overall. Obviously, the Griffins split the weekend, lose Friday, win Sunday. It was a great weekend of Griffins hockey. It was just a fun weekend overall, especially with Dogs game. Again, we'll go back to that and just say it's just a blast to see all the team did see all the former players that came into town. Even McCarty was in town. There was a whole section of guys up there filled with former players that came to see them, and it's just really cool to see. But just to talk about the Griffins overall right now, sitting at the top of the Central Division ahead of Milwaukee. Milwaukee has a couple games in hand, but Griffins have a nice 5-point separation over them. Griffins sitting at 52 goals scored this season, 37 against, like we talked about, continuing to play dominant defense. But the power play is something that we've sat here and talked about for a while going, what is going on? And good old Travis over here looked up the stats this morning, looked at the last 5 games. They're 4 for 9 on the power play. Penalty kill, 13 for 15. Special teams is really making a big difference. And I want to see if you noticed the same thing I noticed, Tyler, on Sunday night with the power play. What did you notice differently from them that we've seen in the past few games?
They scored.
Okay, besides the obvious, Jesus.
Just the way they moved the puck. Just how quick and how crisp. They weren't having to chase the puck. They weren't making simple passes go awry. They weren't getting cute with their opportunities, but they weren't rushing shots. They weren't forcing plays, right? And that's what led to the goals. That's what led to the drives near goal on the power play. They were putting themselves in good positions to put the puck in the net. And you know what's funny? We keep mentioning Dog here. We joked about, hey, give us the coach talk here about the game. When I asked him about the power play, he made a really good point. They're making better shot selections. Like that, say what you want about an equipment manager. Guess what? They watch the game too. They're right there on the bench. They hear everything. They know what's going on. And Dog made a good point. They're making better choices with their chances on shots on goal. They're not throwing pucks down from the point blindly. They're seeing opportunities. They're taking advantage of them. And that's what I think is the best part, because they went through that long stretch again on the power play, and we know that's kind of Steph Julian's realm. And we were in the game, we talked to him afterwards. They went 1 for 1. They had one chance and scored, but he said it's a work in progress, and it's been a work in progress for 5 years. And the fact that it's coming around, and even some people can argue that this Griffins team might not have the same talent level prospect wise as last year's team, but they're doing much better on the special teams with Danielson, with Dries, and I think you're going to see Wallander obviously get some more opportunities on it here eventually. They keep doing the little things right. And that's what I like about this power play. You can and the fact that they're scoring more often, you're going to get more confidence in that. That was non-existent last year. And especially in the playoffs when they really needed their power play to step up, it didn't help them. It kind of what cost them against Milwaukee. So the fact that they're doing this now, if they can keep this going, that's going to make them even more dangerous. They can play both 5-on-5 better than you, but also with the man advantage, something that's not been a strong suit for the Griffins now for a long time.
And you mentioned Wallander too. He was actually on that unit with Dry's goal that came 2 seconds after their power play had expired there. So
I just heard he was slapping his stick, and I'm like, it's got to be over.
Yeah, it was so close. I was like, is that a power play goal? Is it another one in this economy? But honestly, it's so much better. You said the puck movement. That's exactly what I had noticed too. But also the other piece is the guys down low, when the puck's going to the net, they're following it. They're not staying in the bumper or staying on the side of the net. That puck goes towards the net. Those guys are collapsing in and following it. And that is something that we really wanted to see from them, seeing the guys actually move on the power play instead of staying stagnant in one area. I know I said it in one of the first episodes of the season when I watched a full breakdown of a walleye power play. All I could see was guys moving. And I'm like, that's beautiful. I love it. Replicate it here. and I'm seeing it now, which makes me really happy. And I don't know, Trav, if you have any other opinions to add to this power play, since you had pulled the stats for us and we've talked a lot about it, but anything else you wanted to add?
I just want to point out 2-0. 3 assist game on Sunday.
Yeah,
I mean,
lost in all the madness.
really.
You're right. Lost in all the madness. He got an assist on the first goal, which was a power play goal. Look, when you get a guy like Waddy said, Wally and 2-0 this year are going to be your two guys that kind of take that next step. Like I seen it in like 5 games last year with 2-0. Granted, I'm still learning the GR stuff. 2-0 had 5 points in 5 games down here. So offensively, he showed down here like, hey, I can carry a power play, and he's for the most part, I believe, been running their first unit. Like, so it's only going to be beneficial to have his confidence grow as he's starting to see points stack up. He's only going to start to play better, and he has a huge shot, so he could always use that too. And then you got a guy like Wally at the beginning of the year. He was running a power play unit too. So 2 young prospects for the Red Wings running power play units isn't a bad thing to have by any stretch of the imagination.
No, that would be nice. But outside of that, I don't have much else to add to this. Just a reminder that the Griffins are off to the second, or they're tied for the second best start in franchise history right now, which is another awesome thing to see. It's good to get off to a hot start. You look at last year, we didn't have a hot start, and we were still a great team, a playoff team, a deep playoff team. Well, we're starting off hot this year, and as long as they can maintain it, it should look pretty good. And, you go back in history, 2 of these teams were regular season champions at the same time when they are off to a start like this.
Cookie, what I tell you yesterday.
I know. And the regular season championship doesn't matter to me either.
2001 regular season. Well, no, I didn't tell you that. I told you the 01 champion, the regular season champions team. There was an 8-team league, and they also lost in the second round. 05-06, they at least made it to the conference finals before they got the boots taken to them by the Manitoba Moose.
Yeah, I remember that one. That one sucked. But at the same time, being off to a start like this is fantastic. Yeah, Trev?
He mentioned Manitoba, them jerseys.
Oh, yeah. Tyler, did you see those? Their 25th anniversary jerseys they released.
Did they bring back? I can show up. I can bring you my shirt.
They used the hydrojet color. That like light blue.
Oh,
that said Jets on them. It was that color blue with like their Moose logo.
With the old logo. I have a shirt that has the old Manitoba Moose logo, and I've worn it before, and I think no one recognized it because it was like the old green Manitoba Moose shirts, man. Like those.
He said that. You said Moose, and I was like, oh, I got to point that out.
Don't worry, YouTube listeners. I'm pulling it up for you guys.
I am a sucker for old school minor league hockey.
Boom. There we go.
Those things are beautiful.
Yeah, those are clean.
Not that the normal. Here's the thing. I like Manitoba's normal sweaters because I love the fact that, yes, you can tell that they look like the Winnipeg Jets, but they have the different font with the numbers and names. I like that. And the old school logo, it's so cool.
Yeah, it's such a good look.
It was my childhood, right? That's why I will, as much as people hate the Chicago Wolves and all that stuff, and they're the rivals, listen, they've had the same sweater forever, man. And I love it. They didn't need to go. Yeah, they've had alternates and they've had jerseys they've tried out, but they stuck with the same. It's the same maroon and gold and white that they've had forever. And I'm all for that. I think it's neat. You don't need to change it up. You don't need to look like your parent club every single game. Have some fun with it. Be your own franchise. And do what you want. I mean, that's unfortunately, talking about Costa and everything. I love the old Edmonton Oil Kings sweaters, but they kept wanting to wear those black and green neon nonsense all the time. But I love the old school red and blue ones. I think Costa looked better in those. I mean, he played well in either of them, but you get my drift.
We'll have to ask him which one was his favorite. Oh, wait, that means we're talking to him soon. There's a teaser for everybody. All right. With that, though, we'll wrap up this episode here. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And thank you, as always, to Tyler for being available to hop on, man. We always give our guests the floor at the end. Tell people where can they find your work? Where can they find what your thoughts and opinions are? The floor is yours, sir.
My thoughts and opinions? Are you sure about that?
Go there at risk, folks.
No, I am at TJKU29. You can find me on the Twitters, on the Instas, and as well as Threads and Blue Sky. I have a Blue Sky. I jumped with the ship with that, and I don't know if it's better or not, but it's kind of neat. I just posted Hunter Crowther and myself for Daily Faceoff. We just posted our team previews for the PWHL. We got our predictions piece coming up here later this week as well. Getting ready Saturday, first day of the second season of the Professional Women's Hockey League. Excited for that to get underway. And I also today posted a little story about the draft picks the Grand Rapids Rise made of the Pro Volleyball Federation. Shout out to Raven. I got to get her name right here because I forgot off the top of my head. Raven Colvin out of Purdue. She was the team's first round pick this year. 5 really good players they picked. Really excited for the second season of the Grand Rapids Rise too. So lots of good women's sports stuff going on right now. I mean, shoot, even the NWSL had their championship match this past Saturday on CBS. So lots of things going good, and I like covering it. It's fun. I like getting paid to cover it as long as people are willing to pay me to cover it and not tell me to do other things. Anyways, what happened?
No, thank you as always, man. And we do love the women's sports coverage you provide too. We're excited for another season of the Grand Rapids Rise. Their first season was a massive success here in Grand Rapids. We love successful Grand Rapids sports teams. It's only things that improve the city. I mean, we're going to get a professional soccer team here eventually, and all we hope is that outdoor stadium brings us an outdoor hockey game in downtown Grand Rapids at some point in time. If the Griffins need advice on that, you know our email, send it over. We'll help you out there. Trust us. We know what to do. We'll just replicate what Toledo does. Come on, guys. It's not that hard. Anyways, before I get on another tangent in this episode, we'll wrap it up. Thank you again to everyone. And as always, thank you to our sponsors, DraftKings and Game Time, and of course, the Hockey Podcast Network for being partners with us. But of course, we have to thank our Patreon subscribers as well. Without them, the show would not be possible. And let me make sure I get the list right here. We got John in Florida, Elaine Grace, Griffin, Randy Zick, Derek Sleazer, Lori, Allen, and Michael. Thank you all for subscribing on Patreon to the show there. We promise there's more content coming for you guys there. I know we say that a ton, but 3 and 3s, travel, and half the show being sick at the same time is it slows us down a little bit, but we do have some exciting stuff coming, and we'll drop some stuff there very shortly for you guys as well for some future interviews here to get you guys into some questions for those guys we're about to talk to as well. So head over there, patreon.com/Hockeytown West Podcast. Check out what we offer there. We keep the tiers as cheap as possible. We know money is tight for everyone, especially this time of year. So if you want to support the show, head over there, check it out. You're not required to, but we'd love it if you did. With that, boys, we got to wrap this up. Thank you, Tyler, as always, for hopping on, man. Thank you, Travis, for all your extra insight. It was great seeing you this weekend, and I cannot wait to record our Toledo episode this week. It's going to be a ton of fun with a ton of extras to talk about. But until then, go Griffins, go Walleye.
Love
you don't have
Bye.
to say it, Travis.
Oh, thank God.
We need a new outro for Travis, but everyone, we'll talk to you guys soon.
Thank you for tuning in to the Hockeytown West podcast. Be sure to check us out on Twitter at HockeytownWPod and your host, Nick at GR Hockey Guy and Brandon at BrandonGR Hockey.